Hello and welcome to Noise in the Void. My name is Emily and I'm here with Vera Constantineau. Vera is a lifelong learner and a lover of fiction, poetry, and the Japanese forms of artistic expression, a former poet laureate of Greater Sudbury and longtime member of the Sudbury Writers Guild. Hello, Vera. How are you today?
Hello. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. Did you bring something for us to read or for
Well,
you to read? I'm the most professional person you will ever meet.
you didn't hear any of my stuff early on. Yes, I did. I did. Did
Okay,
you want to
please
hear?
go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. I'm going to read from Enlightened by Defilement because it's haibun, which I'm deeply into right now. And actually, I'll read something about Sudbury. It's called the Tall Red Apartment Building. It's a stopgap on the way to our new home. Again, the elevator. The doors glide open, and the artist from 2 floors down, a lot of cachet, a newsworthy figure, steps in. I nudge my husband. We share a smile behind the celebrity's back. I tell my brother about these chance encounters, and he says, "So? He used to paint lunch pails in the break room at the smelter. Next time you see him in the elevator, tell him Smitty says hello." One shaft, another shaft, eye of the beholder. And I don't remember the guy's name now, but I was pretty impressed at the time. And that is Hyblen.
I have seen you read before and I could listen to it forever, honestly.
I left the saucy ones alone.
Maybe later we'll see. Maybe I should host one of these where we're drinking wine.
I don't drink. I
I
quit
don't
drinking
either. I don't even know
years.
why.
We'll fake it with ginger ale. It'll be great.
There we go.
Champagne for you and me.
So the first thing I want to ask is I'm sure something you've been asked before and something I've been asked before. How do you get started? And usually I guess the most common answer is just do it, just write. But do you have anything to go with that?
How did I get started? Well, I don't know if you remember a show called The Wonder Years.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The narrator would do the voiceover for it, and I was fascinated with the voice because he kind of told the story. And I thought, that sounds really cool. So I started writing humor columns using his narration in my head to tell my stories. And I was working at the Around and About in Espanola, and I was there for years. And then I moved on. But the idea of him narrating in my head really helped me to tell my story because he had a cadence that I really liked. And then later I realized I had formed my own voice. I'd found my own. And that's a really good thing because you can't be walking around sounding like what's his Daniel Stern. That's his name. And the humor thing I think was in my family. And my mother would tell her stories and they'd always end on a high note. I am an eternal optimist too. And so that's how I got started. Um, I went from writing, and I also wrote short stories back then, and they were always sweet. And, I didn't really have the idea of big climax, but I took a workshop at um, Cambrian. Well, more than the workshop, I was there for about, a whole semester because they gave a course. And that's where I learned the parts of a short story. And that helped. And then I got a real education, and that really helped. I mean, you may have all the story ideas in the world, but if you don't have anything to back them up, like some kind of knowledge on how each thing works, it
So
mostly doesn't work.
so you would recommend some type of education, whether it's a workshop or a course. You don't necessarily have to take a full on program.
No, I I took every workshop I could, and that was beneficial. And I mean, I started taking poetry courses when I was 19. I moved over here to go to school. And when my courses at Sheridan Tech were done, that's how long ago it was, um, they were giving poetry classes right down the street from my apartment. I thought, I have to go. And I did. And it was really good. So I am a lifelong learner. That's what I meant by that. Like I have been taking courses. I still go to courses. I got a writing certificate, creative writing certificate from Loyalist College in Belleville. And I mean, I don't have a university degree, but I'm creative and I learn by teaching myself and going to places where I can learn. I do recommend that.
Now, we do live in a day and age where people could go on YouTube and look at tutorials as well. Did you find there was a benefit to being in a classroom or in a workshop with other people, or were there once in a while you're like, this could have been, a 5-minute video and I could have gotten out of here?
Well, I think it depends on the presenter. Sometimes you think, well, this was a waste of money because, sometimes you have to pay. Not online, obviously. Well, no, really, sometimes online as well. You go into a workshop thinking this is going to be great, and it's just a repetition of everything you've heard before because at a certain point, you've heard things before and then you just have to put them into practice. Um, I like workshops though. I think being in a room with other people and seeing their reaction to how things are being presented is really beneficial. And when I give workshops, I love when someone comes back to me afterward, like your husband, Frank, and tells me that he's still writing haiku based on the one workshop that he had with me. That's that's very gratifying.
He gets still nervous about it because I don't know why. At one point, I try to tell him that even as I like to consider myself an experienced writer, and you're an experienced writer, and we still have that imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
So, and it's worse when you're a new writer and he's full on in it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the other part of writing and sending things somewhere where you want to be published is that you get rejected. And that never goes away. Sad, but true.
Yeah, and well, I've been to one of your workshops with, and you are so encouraging. Do you feel that I feel that we are moving away from competitiveness, especially in the arts, to more collaborative. And it was like when you go to an art exhibit, it's usually multiple artists, but when you go to someone's book launch, it seems very narrowed in on that one person. But now we're more adept to be like when I went to Holly Gutwillinger's book launch, and like everyone who was helping her out was other authors, and we're all there to help each other. Do you find that, I guess that I want to call it selfishness, but maybe it was a little bit selfishness, that we didn't want to help others, we just wanted to help ourselves, is fading away? Or is that still a personality type and I'm just being a Pollyanna right now?
No, I agree with you. There is a lot more community for writers. And I think we are all kind of helping each other. Not just kind of, we are all helping each other. So it should be because, when one of us succeeds, we all succeed. When someone does something and then, other people are involved in it, it encourages them to maybe start something new or different. And I was at Holly's launch too. I could not believe the buzz there. It was just amazing. Mind you, the work she had put in and the fact that she made a decision to write a book and wrote it, no questions. I'm just going to do this. And boy, she's a go-getter, that one.
Yeah, I'm interviewing her in a bit, and we write together, and I still get intimidated by her, by that ambition. And I think new writers maybe think they don't have that ambition, and they don't deserve maybe to move forward. But I think you're just you get in your own head. Dave, do you still get that way?
I do. And I think that, sorry, my computer's trying to restart itself now, but I won't let it. Uh, the idea that we all have that imposter syndrome is real. And I think sometimes we just have to step away and say, okay, now you're just being stupid, you know? Because if you want something badly enough, I think you will do it. That said, I have a whole folder full of crap novels that I have never been able to make myself edit all the way through because that's when it kicks in for me is when I'm part way in and I hit a section that, you know it needs work. But then you think, oh, I'm so bad at this. Why am I even bothering? And that's the time to kick your own butt and go for a coffee. Because if you want it, you have to work at it. It's not just gonna come to you. Nobody beams it down, Emily.
As much as we would like it to.
Yeah.
But so why did you feel drawn to poetry, or more specifically, Japanese forms of art to express yourself?
Well, I have a friend, Irene Golis, who lives here in Sudbury. She wrote a book with Ignatius Fay, who is also a haiku poet. Irene is a haiku poet, and she wrote a book called Brecha. But pretty much at the end of teaching everybody in Sudbury through open mics, and she ran a soiree at the Sudbury Arts Council for a while. And every time I would hear her deliver three lines that poked me right in the head, I thought, I don't know how she does that. And eventually we became friends and are still friends. And she was my mentor for 5 years. It took me 5 years to write my first haiku. And there's just something about it. It's so concise and can just tell you so much about the life of a person. And haiku are meant to be written in the haiku moment, which isn't always possible. I mean, there's not every day you have a oh my god moment, but it is really just being aware of the world. And I think I've always been an observer, mostly a people watcher because I'm nosy. But there's something about the Japanese forms that is just so clear and satisfying. I love it. And I want everybody I know to love it. And look what happened to your husband. He can write it now and seems to really like it. And I think that happens to a lot of people. The simplicity of it
Well, does it
is
fall
what.
in line with what inspires you daily? Because you say it's a moment in time. Do you
Right.
feel like, do you look for inspiration, or do you just wait for that one moment to find you?
Well, and it goes both ways. I mean, there are times when I know I have something coming up and I need to write some new stuff, and I will just sit, center myself, concentrate. I used to think people who had a process were all just being pretentious, but I get that now. There is a process to it. You have to kind of take yourself to that place. But then they just happened. Like yesterday, a robin landed on a 3 foot snowbank outside my kitchen window and started to sing. And I thought, yeah, buddy, you better cheer yourself up. And, so I wrote a haiku about that.
And I, because it's so nature centered, love that Japanese haiku will have a completely different feel in Northern Ontario than it would in BC, than it would in, South America. They would all have a completely different thing to say and to share.
Yeah. Well, in the world, it's connected form. There are people everywhere, Australia, everywhere. It's a world thing. And during the pandemic, a lot more people took on the writing of the Japanese forms, haiku, senryu, haibun. The one thing I cannot write is tanka, which is a 5 line poem, which originally was meant to be a love poem or a song in Japan. It just doesn't fit into my head the same way the 3 line ones do. Maybe all I can manage these days, Emily, is a 3 line poem. But it's been very gratifying learning it. It's 30 years now. that I've been learning this, and it's barely a drop in the bucket.
I love that you said that it's like you said, you're a lifelong learner. It's been 30 years that you're learning it, not 30 years that you've been doing it. Because every time you do it, you're learning more.
That's right. Look how intuitive you are.
Aw. Please don't ever be shy of telling me nice things about me.
Okay. We'll end on a high note over there.
So, one thing that I struggled with in the beginning with writing was honesty. And that is one thing that I would, with other adjectives, honesty is one of the things in your writing and your personality and everything about you. How difficult was it for you to get there? Or were maybe you were born like that?
Mm, well, I am an honest person. I do like to write with honesty, but there's only so much you want to tell people. I wrote that memoir and I put almost memoir because I thought, there are a few things in there I want deniability on, but not really. It's really memoir, but um I don't struggle with honesty in my writing, especially in the Japanese forms, because I think if you are writing about the world, then it's there for everyone to see. You just need to say it. And after writing Enlightened by Defilement, published by Latitude 46, still available on the shelf, um, I felt this tremendous weight lifted off me. Like, whew, thank God that's all out there now. And I think that's a good thing about writing. It's very cathartic. There's no point in lying. People will find you out. It's just not something you shouldn't do it. It's very bad. Look at who's that writer who wrote uh she wrote a novel and she used some pen name and people liked it so much. Elena something or other, I think it was called. That was her first name. And people liked the book so much that they just would not sleep without knowing who the real person was. And this is how far we are now with everybody digging into your business on social media. So there's no point in trying to hide anything. People will find out.
Oh,
Sad but
I
true.
was so upset when they revealed who Banksy was because I felt it removed something from the art. We don't
I
need to
agree.
know who everybody is. We just don't.
No, we don't. And we don't need to know well, I do. I need to know everything about everybody because I'm nosy. I already said that. But not really. People are allowed their privacy.
You're not gonna be the person digging online and looking at all the shady websites and you know.
No, I have enough trouble in my life. I don't need anybody else's. Yeah.
And if I may, piece of honest advice to the new writers out there, uh, don't ever be afraid to hustle, especially if you're a self-published author or an indie published author. Anytime you have an opportunity to tell people where to find your books, you take it. And you got to, that was something I had to learn the hard way. You got to get over that shyness because no one's going to do it for you. No one's going to promote you but you.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people do have trouble pumping themselves up publicly. That's why you have community. That's why Holly's launch was such a success and why your books are, successful and why it's so good to network. Not because you want to use people, but because you need the support of people who know what it's like to have a book there and then you're trying to brag about your book, which is very awkward when you first start. Now I just do it. I've got 3 books. If I haven't mastered it by now, I'm never going to pull it off.
There you go.
And
Um,
then someone else can say something about your work that you would never say about yourself, except me, of course. I like me. Sad.
Well, I started promoting my book by saying this is the worst book you'll ever read, and apparently it was not very good marketing. It didn't work, so I had to
No,
change that.
that's not a good way to start. You should have talked to me first.
I learned my lesson.
Good.
Now, one of your projects that I absolutely loved was the coffee cups and haikus combined.
Yeah.
I was wondering, what was your inspiration for that, and is that something that you might want to do in the future with? Like, have you noticed any other patterns that have emerged since you've done that?
Well, I'm still stuck on the coffee cups. Every day I look inside the cup when I'm finished drinking coffee to see what kind of picture has been created by the coffee sludge. And sometimes it's amazing to me what I can see. It's pareidolia, your brain seeing things that are not really there. We all have that ability. We see things in clouds or, you know,
I see love
just
in my
seeing.
parents' eyes.
There you go. That's a good one. And, we all want that. Um, don't we?
I'm sorry if I'm gonna. This is the only opportunity I think I'll ever have to do dark humor, is because you're the only person who
Uh,
gets it.
well, I think I'm a little on the dark side myself. So I think, and I don't know if you do this, but I aim for humor all the time. I think it's so easy to bring people down with, a sad story, but making people laugh it's a gift. If you have it, you use it. And I grew up in a family where everybody was a laugher and told weird stories and played tricks, and it was just really a good way to grow up.
No,
Not
I,
that it was all
I'll
sunshine and roses.
every time I get in trouble for my sense of humor, I blame my mom. She
Oh,
has it too.
that's not nice to do to other Vera.
But she knows she gave it to me, and she's proud of it.
See, now my mother would say, "Don't get above yourself. Like don't think you're special just because you do something." I
Well,
grew up that way. That and don't get in trouble.
and you did both.
Yeah. Well, life is no fun if. And this whole honesty thing, I don't know what she would make of it. I don't, because she was a very quiet person. Well, not really quiet. She talked a blue streak. So do I. I inherited that from her. And I don't regret it. I mean, why not? It wasn't the worst thing I could have inherited. That was arthritis.
Well, and that's why I was so, even though I think I know my mom. When I was writing, I was my first book was a memoir of postpartum depression, and I was so afraid of being honest, because that was my one thing, is what if my mom reads this? And
Oh,
once I got over that, you kind of have to not care, and I'm glad I get to know what she thought, but sometimes you think it would be better that you didn't know what they thought. And I know that's a really sad thing to think, but you don't want to disappoint those people.
no, you don't. No. But my mom was such a supportive woman, even when, I mean, I could screw up left, right, and center, and she would still love me.
Aw.
Had a little choke
And
moment there.
that comes through in you perfectly, because you encourage all of us, you encourage all the people in your life in the same way, that you make sure
Thank you.
you're not a punch down person, you're a prop up person.
Thank you. I aim to
Well,
be a supporter.
I'm going to do a hard pivot. Tell me about what it's like being poet laureate, because it sounds like such an auspicious title.
It does sound auspicious, and it is an honor to be named. But the day this might have been sort of a foretell of what went on, because the day I was named poet laureate here in Sudbury, 2020, um, the COVID shutdown happened. So it was me and my office and my little calling card, 3 lines at a time, and I had no idea what to do. Thank God for Zoom. Zoom took me all over the world. I went all over the place. And England was my favorite. I went to Ireland a couple of times. Um, I think it opened up places, not just for me, but for Sudbury, because everywhere I went, I talked about Sudbury. And in England, they have something similar to the regreening we have here, but they call it rewilding.
Ooh, I like that.
Me too. I don't want to rewild me because that would be bad. Ask other Vera. And then now people are going to want to know, you'll have to interview your mother.
Oh, I would love to.
um, I went all over, and I had the PL Pod, which was a podcast that Pierre Dubuc from the library helped me set up, and I had so much fun with that. And we had people from Sweden, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, all over the place coming to listen to my podcast on a regular basis, which was pretty gratifying. And that's how I reached out during the laureate. So I'm the COVID laureate. No one knows me. I am anonymous. Seriously, no one really knows me. I mean, I didn't get anywhere public, so they wouldn't recognize my face. Now, because I'm out for others, well, for a long time I was out for other things, but that was kind of a different way to approach the laureate thing. I did try to do things in Sudbury. I mean, I you're invited as laureate to do some things like the having a brain moment here. The ones through the school board. I wrote Dear Butterfly, which is kind of a cute little poem, and I'm sure every poet in the world hates. Oh, isn't that cute? No, but this one really is. It's meant for children, so it's just simple. And doing workshops through different community organizations and uh, presenting things to other places. I mean, really, Zoom has been a gift. I know not on Zoom at this moment,
But
but
Zoom
Zoom
gave
was
rise to this.
the precursor of every time you want to show your face, do this. I know we're on radio, but I can see you on my screen. So there you go. But I really think Zoom was a gift. The one thing and Zoom was kind of an example to every person who was footloose, fancy free, and able to run about the world free as a bird. For people like myself, I use a wheelchair or a scooter when I'm going places, and I can't just get up and walk into any room. It has to be accessible. And even then, I'm going to be wheeled in. And Zoom gave a lot of people accessibility all of a sudden. I know there was YouTube, but I wasn't using it. And uh, the idea that I could go to workshops in Seattle and in Cincinnati and in the East Coast and in Vancouver. I mean, come on, I had been nowhere before that. And yet during COVID, these are all the things that happened because people were now presenting things online because they weren't going to get an audience otherwise. It was great. And I'm sorry that some of them have pulled back on that. They are no longer giving a public presentation on Zoom so that you can join these far off places. Far off from me.
Yeah, I don't think they realized I read a couple of articles of people saying they got rid of their Zoom and then realized afterwards that was a mistake because they lost a major audience, and so
Yeah,
hybrid was the way to go. So
yeah,
I just hope other businesses will not make that same mistake, like find out the hard way.
yeah.
And I vote that we start a GoFundMe for you, that you can now be brought in on a litter, like Egyptian style, into every room.
Okay, don't invite trouble. That's my. That'd be awesome. I don't need that, but I would use it.
Yeah. This might be ignorant, but how do you even become poet laureate? Do they offer it to you, or because of certain achievements? Do you have to apply?
Well, in Sudbury, there is an application process, and um, the ones that came before, I was the sixth poet laureate, so people had been applying for a long time. Roger Nash was the first. Daniel Oban II, uh, Thomas LeDuc the third, uh, Kim Fonner. I may have the order wrong because I don't have a list in front of me, but I know we all are. And then there was Chloe La Duchesse, and uh, and then me, and now it is Alex. Uh,
French last name.
yeah, very, and I'm not, but uh, Tetro, Alex
It's
Tetro,
oh yeah.
who has opened up an entire different world. He's young. I forgot Kyla Haming. She was, I think, before Alex, and you know, you apply with hope and examples. You should have a bit of a background in things, and I had read at the library, done workshops, so you have to have sort of a steady background, and I did. But I had never anticipated being poet laureate. And if not for Tom and Kim Fonner, did I? No, I mentioned Kim because she's an important part of this. She's very community oriented, such a great poet, well known, and so supportive of everything. And between Tom and Kim, they encouraged me to apply, and look what happened. And then it all got shut down. And the truth is, because I am limited in my capabilities for travel and getting about, and buildings that don't have a ramp, and a 3-inch step is still a step. And so, you have to be aware that you can't go there. And then, COVID happened, and it opened up this whole Zoom world for me. And I think that was a gift to me. And so I loved my time as a poet laureate. I I wouldn't take it back for anything, but if you're going to do it, you have to devote yourself to it. And I am glad that we've had a good selection of people who devote themselves to it. The community deserves it. This place is so, I love this city. I always have. And I grew up on Manitoulin Island, which is also a beautiful place, but it wasn't my place. You know, I was born here. And then I went to live on the island when I was 8 months old. And I think I fought to get back here the whole time I lived there because I felt like this was my home. This is where I belong.
It's an odd feeling. I lived in Calgary for the better part of 20 years, and when I came back, I miss Calgary because I miss having things open when I need them to be open. But
Mhm.
otherwise, I'm home, for better or for
Yeah,
worse.
you get it.
Yeah.
I lived in Vancouver for a bit. And when I came home, I wanted so bad to look out a window and see a mountain. They made me feel so safe in my place there, that, and they're beautiful, and the whole, and not a lot of snow. Grr. And so I get what you're saying, that coming here is coming home.
I remember my first, so moved here in August, and yeah, and the mountains are beautiful. I remember people in Calgary saying they were sick of Banff, and I just didn't get it. Like
No.
you go back to, I'm like, you have to live in Banff overnight on the street, and then you'll like it again because you have to be there and wake up with them to remember how beautiful they are.
Oh,
But
Banff is
I
where,
was thinking I'll never see something like that again. And then the leaves started to change here, and I completely forgot that that was something trees did because there's almost no maple trees around southern Alberta. So
yeah.
they just went from green to brown, and then that was it. But the colors, I was in awe, and like, okay, I can't wail about mountains anymore because it is beautiful here.
It is. I think sometimes though we fail to appreciate what we have, and you have to go away and then come back to see what you really have. And so we've both experienced that, and I'm glad. Those are the builders inside of us.
Yes, and it helps us learn.
It does.
I and
You should.
I love Sudbury, and I hope the people who live here love Sudbury. But I think you need to get away for a little bit, go somewhere else, and then come back, and you'll be in a better spot mentally and emotionally.
Yeah. And I think, uh, I think we all need to leave home, whether that's in fact, like I left my home on the island to go to school over here, and it was a good move for me. I got independence for the first time in my life because of, uh, not to downplay the island, but a lot of people are watching you there too. You know everyone, which is good and bad. And so going away teaches you freedom, and it also teaches you what you will miss if you don't go home when you come home.
I was speaking with Shannon, a friend of ours, Shannon Stewart,
Yeah.
and she said we were talking about Connie Lewis, who has just passed away, but she
Mhm.
lived an incredible life. And Shannon was saying it's not as feasible anymore for us to like Connie took off and went and lived in Hawaii and lived in Alaska and or in the up north and did all these incredible things, and she feels like she's more trapped, that we don't have that accessibility anymore to leave when the mood takes us. Do you feel it's because of the economy maybe that we don't have that anymore, or we just lost maybe that little bit of I want to say courage that maybe someone like Connie would have had?
Well, Connie was a very adventurous woman and willing to do all kinds of things. She just wanted to experience things, and she did. And she did live a fantastic life. I mean, the idea of her going to Hawaii and finding out after she got there as a registered nurse that it was a leper colony, that would have put me on a bus home. Well, okay, plane. But she was willing to just do anything and help people in any way she could. And I think that's something a lot of nurses have in common. We've Betty Gannett also was a longtime member of the Sudbury Writers Guild and wanted to travel the world and did in many, many ways. She and her family went to Europe several times, and she drove to Vancouver with her kids in the back of a station wagon. She loved telling that story. And um, I don't know if it's lack of courage or I honestly don't know. And it's okay to say you don't know if you don't know. But I think the world has changed a lot. You can't just decide you're going to work in the US or anywhere like that. You have to have all the proper stuff, and then there's, things to deal with. But, um,
Very orange things to deal with.
oh, yeah. Yeah.
We can leave it there. That'll be a whole other conversation.
I can give you a haiku.
Oh,
Orange lily, the beautiful redemption of orange. No, wait, it's daylily, the beautiful redemption of orange.
oh my god, I love that so much.
See, haiku. Well, actually, yeah, that's haiku. It's a hybrid. Um, you can just say so many things that are so impactful without saying a lot. That's and it will teach you to pare back on your, wordiness in bigger projects like novels and such.
Well, so around you, and on my own, a couple of times I have tried to write haikus, and they say it's just 3 lines, but I agonize over it, and it made me wonder, with the advent of AI, though it's only 3 lines, is that something AI could ever properly replicate? And I really hope the answer is no.
I really think the answer is no, because you have to be a thinking, feeling person. When I did the Lily poem just now, you put your hands to your mouth like, oh, and AI is not going to have emotion in it. It can't feel things. It doesn't know what's going on in the nether regions of the world here. And so, I think no, it won't. Mind you, it can pull off a pretty good facsimile. I was interviewed once before, and that person brought in some chat GPT examples and asked me, you know, were they legitimate? Well, that puts you on the spot. Thanks a lot. And I was unprepared for that. But I think the answer, after having thought about it, is no. There's no emotion in things that come from that. Plus, there are a load of errors that, you have to be aware of with AI. My sister calls it Al. It's because of the single capital I in printing.
Yeah. I thought it was
Tells me,
Al the first little bit too until someone said it out loud. So I
yeah,
get that.
yeah, I know. It's language is an amazing thing.
Well, I've seen now so many. So there was a big push in social media, or I would say last year, to support indie authors and support self-published authors, and then so many of them came back as having used AI that people felt duped, and now they feel like they say there's now a restraint against supporting people like that because people don't want to be made a fool of anymore. Now, I hate to say it, that makes me happy because that means that people don't want AI. But if they don't want it and they feel duped when they're given something AI to read, why are people still using it? Why do you, or is that a little too deep for right now?
No, I don't. Well, deep is what we do, right? We're writers and we do think things through. And I think a lot of people maybe don't have the confidence, or they want something to be the best that they think it can be. So they get the help that they think they're going to need. But keeping in mind, a machine is now writing, and a machine can't think or feel, it can only process algorithm information. So that's what you're getting. And um, I don't think the books that I want to read, or that you want to read and the world wants to read, are going to be emotionless, technically written in a good way, but then there are all these errors that come in, and you realize AI is not going to be you, Emily, and it's not going to be me. And I mean,
Well, I've been thinking
uh,
about it more, and someone I had a hard time with this question is if you're writing for you, why are you publishing? And I the answer I came up with after thinking about it is I'm publishing books and I want them out there because that's my connection to the reader is when they're reading those words.
mhm.
But I think it's the flip side too. That's my correction connection to the reader when I'm reading that. So if I'm reading something generated by AI, the connection's been lost. There's nothing meaningful there anymore.
That's right. Well, I've mentioned humor. I don't think a machine is going to get some of the things I write. But, but then again, a lot of people don't get some of the things I write, because they're not familiar with it yet. Um, Tom LeDuc said recently, with regard to the Japanese forms, because he's been to more than one of my workshops, and that's what he said: you have to go to the source, and you have to read the books, and you have to go to the workshops more than once, because you may not hear it the first time. And I appreciate that, because it took me 5 years to write my first one. And that was such a good moment. I was sitting in the parking lot of Smith's Grocery in New Sudbury, and I was angry at myself. I had this little book called Acorn, which is a beautiful journal, publishes haiku and sanrio. And I was angry at myself because I'd read this thing 1,000 times, and I'm not exaggerating. I took that thing everywhere in my purse, and every time I sat somewhere for 5 minutes, I would try to read something from it and ask myself, why do these work and I can't pull it off? And Irene kept encouraging me. And so I'm in the parking lot, and it was getting close to supper time. I was hungry. And I looked at a poem and I thought, it's like, what do I like? What do I not like? And what's the difference? Or how does that connect? And my first poem was Breast Exam Day, checking the mashed potatoes for lumps.
I don't want to laugh. Okay.
No, I laughed. I'm sitting there having a hysterical moment because I thought, oh my God, I pulled one off. And when I spoke to Irene, she said, you did it. Well, yeah,
Oh my god, my heart is singing right now.
they're so simple. And you just have to be thinking. And that's what happens.
If you'll excuse the hard pivot, besides your books, do you have any book recommendations?
I have such a big old to be read pile. Well, I obviously read in the Japanese forms, and a few of my friends, Brian Cook in Ottawa, is coming out with a new book of haiku. I read a lot of that. Maxie Ann Berger has already got a book out. If you're interested in learning about the forms, you really have to read them. And there's an online website. This will be the last on this bit, but there's an online website called Contemporary Haibun Online, and they publish really, really good stuff. Nothing ugly gets in there. My heroine, Roberta Berry, is one of the editors there, and anything that you read on there is quality haibun. As for books, I'm kind of a sloppy reader, you know. I think as long as you're reading something, your brain is active. So I read a lot of crime fiction. Michael Connelly is my favorite, and Harry Bosch. That the Bosch. I have not watched the TV show, but when I became poet laureate, and just before that, California shut down, and my first thought was, "Whoa, I hope Harry's okay," because I was so deeply involved with. I'd read all the books, and I really liked his character development and the person he became after about the sixth book, maybe. And so him, also criminally connected, Harlan Coben, who wrote a really good book with Reese Witherspoon. You either liked it a lot or you really hated it because it got some things online, but you know, I'm an eclectic reader. I don't read just this or just that. The local writers, I mean, Emily DeAngelis, and you interviewed her recently, I know. She's kicking butt with her her
The
novel
bird.
development and her her website and all of the things she's doing. She's going to have a tea party at something called now I'm not going to remember, but it's near Woodstock where she is. It's either Woodstock or London, and I mean the things she's doing and her ideas moving forward. Read her. Stones of Burn Bay is really good, and the next one that's coming out. I hope she's announced this. Is a book that it's called For the Sake of Mercy. And she used haibun in there because it's a student learning something. And she decided that it would be haibun. Oh,
She
man.
she spoiled that by talking about you in her interview.
Oh, oh. And, that, you know, if you are going to read a lot, some things have to go. And I cannot keep up with podcasts. Sometimes I just have to take a weekend and just podcast the brain out of myself because I can't keep up. They're so good. There's a guy up north, Graham Strong. He writes something called To Write with Wild Abandon. I mean, the title alone. And he gives such good advice. So there's that. Sorry, I fell off the book market here. I'm just looking at my shelf. And because I belong to the Haiku Society of Canada now, well, for a long time, since 2009, recommended by Lawrence Stephen, university professor. Um, I read the journals that come from different organizations. So, reading for pleasure, I mean, it's still a pleasure to read the journals, but then I get asked to do things like read through someone's manuscript before they publish just to give my opinion, which is beyond, I feel humbled by that. So I read a lot, but it's not necessarily, you know,
I
book
know
books.
just this year, most of my reading has been ARC reviews. And it's
Yeah.
like it just made my to be read shelf longer.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, I think Emily does that as well.
And
And
like you said, it is an honor, but you have to pick that and let something else go, unfortunately. And I'm happy to
yeah,
do that, but yeah, as long as you know you're making the choice.
yeah. I don't, and people give it to you and they say, well, you have to be honest. Well, what else are you going to be? If you stand behind a book that isn't good, people won't trust you. It's like, well, she was wrong. I'm not listening to her again. So
Yeah.
there's that.
Yes.
Like we are in such a rich community right now too. A lot of the people I know and have put out new books, and the spring rush is on, and it's so good to see because in the early days of the Sudbury Writers Guild, nobody was published, and you know we dreamed of the day, and now here we are,
I'm
and be
glad.
forewarned, if you put a book out, then you have a book out, and you have to work at making it a success. It's not going to yell out at people off the shelf. You have to do that yourself.
Words to live by. Thank you. Thank you so much, Vera, for being here. Where can the people find you and your books?
Well, you can find my books at Chapters, and anywhere you want to order a book, you can order The Latitude 46 Enlightened by Defilement. I highly recommend it, seriously. And Bayou's Books has a couple. Books and Beans have, but you can order any of my books online. Get them at the library. Use your local libraries. Support your local library.
I 100% agree. Thank you, everyone, for listening. You can pick this up on CKLU 96.7 in Sudbury or online, and the video will be available on my YouTube channel, Garbage Wars with Garbage Lady Unedited. Thank you and have a good day. Bye bye. Thank you, Vera. That was awesome.